call questions. Questions orales. The honourable member from Stormont Dundas South Glengarry.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, and time is up on the Prime Minister's costly carbon tax. And yesterday, once again, the Parliamentary Budget Officer reaffirmed again that Canadians are out when it comes to the tax. If you add up their two carbon taxes, and of course they tax the tax with GST, it will cost households anywhere between $900 to $2,000 per year. So if the government is so sure of their plan to quadruple the carbon tax, why would they let Canadians decide in a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday was indeed a momentous day for Canada because yesterday the Pharmacare Bill became law in this country. This means hope for 12 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker, for those affected by diabetes, for women struggling with the cost of contraception. Help is now on the way. For the first time ever in Canadian history, the Government of Canada will be helping to bring down the cost of medication, helping Canadians with their affordability. Mr. Speaker, it's a historic day which we should all celebrate in this place.
The honourable member from Stormont Dundas South Glengarry.
What is happening in this country is nothing to celebrate. For the first time in this country, we have 2 million visits to food banks per month. That's 24 million visits, record-shattering in this country. We have thousands of encampments that have popped up in every part of the country. There are children struggling to get meals. 1 in 4 are skipping meals because of the carbon tax and their plan to quadruple it. At the end of the day, this is no coincidence, Mr. Speaker. It's because they keep driving up the carbon tax. When can we just have a carbon tax election so Canadians can decide on the future to axe the tax?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, a few days before Thanksgiving, I think all of us have tremendous compassion for all Canadians who are struggling to make ends meet. But on this side of the House, we know that the best guarantee of a good life for a family is a good job. And that's why we want to celebrate the fact that we learned this morning that in September, Canada added 47,000 new jobs. Unemployment fell, and every single one of those new jobs, Mr. Speaker, was in the private sector.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member from Stormont Dundas South Glengarry.
Well, yesterday's report from Stats Canada was nothing to celebrate. That confirmed that income inequality after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government has never been higher. The gap increased by 50% between the richest and poorest Canadians, the highest it's ever been on record. And after 9 years, when this Prime Minister promised to help the middle class and those working hard to join it, there are now millions of Canadians that will never be able to join the middle class because of their ever-increasing taxes like the carbon tax. Why can't we have a carbon tax election for Canadians to decide if they want to quadruple the carbon tax or axe it entirely?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
You know, Mr. Speaker, the only party in this House that voted against tax fairness has a lot of gall getting up and talking about income inequality. We are the party that fights every single day for the middle class. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to say that part of the jobs news we had today was wages. Wages have now outpaced inflation for 20 months in a row.
Hear, hear.
A good job at a good wage, that is a recipe for middle-class success in Canada.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois supported the Liberals in their inflationary spending spree almost 200 times. Quebecers are turning to food banks. Ordinary people are facing homelessness, grandparents unable to pay their rent, students having to sleep in homeless shelters. It costs $1,743 a month to rent a one-bedroom in Montreal. This country needs more competence, and Conservatives are ready to set things straight. Will the government give Canadians a choice and call an election? The Honourable Minister of Labour and Seniors. Mr. Speaker, we are pleased about the great news my colleague has shared this morning. Pharmacare is now the law in Canada. Joblessness is now rapidly declining and wages are up. The only thing declining is the number of public servants that will be needed to make conservative cuts. The Conservatives should be transparent, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Bellechasse, Les Etchemin-Lévis. The Bloc Québécois isn't exactly boasting about supporting the Liberal government almost 200 times, Mr. Speaker. The government that has centralized power more than any in history. This government spends without scruples. It drove up inflation. In Montreal, you need to earn $59,000 to rent a one-bedroom. At Thanksgiving, Canadians won't even be able to cook their traditional meals. This government's incompetence is intolerable. Will the government finally give a gift to Canadians and call elections? The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague, whom I greatly respect, spoke about what is intolerable. Well, what is intolerable is hearing the Conservative leader talk about the difficulties faced by Quebecers, while at the same time saying that he will hurt them and punish them by cutting the services they need. This includes funding for the school food program. Will my colleague advise her leader to actually meet with teachers and tell them that feeding students is Liberal bureaucracy? The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Yesterday, farmers from all over came to Ottawa to support Bloc Québécois Bill C-282 on supply management, which is being held up in the Senate. All the parties were there to call on two senators, Peter Beam and Peter Harder, to stop holding up the will of the people's house. Everyone was there, except one person, who still has not spoken up on this file. That person is the Prime Minister. Yet he is the one who personally appointed the two great noblemen who are holding everything up. When will the Prime Minister finally call on his two appointees to stop holding up democracy? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If there's one thing on which the Bloc Québécois and the Liberal Party agree, is it's the need to protect supply management. We have explained this over and over. Since 2015, we have decided to appoint independent senators. But there were senators appointed before that. Conservative appointees are not independent. We saw this Wednesday morning when they attended the Conservative caucus. Will the Conservative leader call on his senators to vote to protect the supply management system? Order. The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean, for Saint-Jean. The Prime Minister didn't only appoint the two senators who are holding up the bill, he has a privileged relationship with Peter Harder. Senator Harder even brags about it on his website. Harder advised the Prime Minister when the Liberals were in opposition in 2015, and the Prime Minister personally would pick up the phone and call him. The Prime Minister even tasked Mr. Harder with planning the transition to a Liberal government 6 months before appointing him senator. If the Prime Minister has Senator Harder's phone number, why won't he use it to tell him to stop holding up democracy? The Honourable Minister of Labour and Seniors. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois doesn't seem interested in the files anymore, so I will remind them that yesterday I celebrated Thanksgiving with residents from Lagap in my riding of Gatineau. Those people told me, Mr. McKinnon, we have signed up for the Canadian Dental Care Plan. They wonder why the Bloc is putting hundreds of millions of dollars at risk. I would just like to remind members that it is important not to use individual names, even if they are referring to themselves. The Honourable Member for Rosemont La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, a new report shows that the cost of living is increasing faster than income is for the 40% poorest households in Canada. That means that almost half of Canadians are growing poorer. People are struggling while the rich are stuffing their pockets. Conservatives have announced that they will be cutting programs that help people like dental care and pharmacare. programs that owe their existence to the NDP. The two largest parties are costing the population dearly. What will it take for the Liberals to stop kowtowing to wealthy CEOs at the expense of Quebecers? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we agree that dental care is very helpful to Quebecers and Canadians. Something else that helps them is having a good job with a good wage. And that is why today we are very happy that in September the Canadian economy added 47,000 new jobs, and for 20 months now, wages have been increasing faster than inflation. That is a good piece of news for all Canadians.
Vancouver Kingsway.
A new report paints a disturbing picture of economic injustice in Canada. Income inequality has hit the highest level ever recorded, and the bottom 40% of Canadians hold less than 3% of Canada's wealth. The Liberals let this happen, caving to wealthy CEOs jacking up grocery prices and rent, while the Conservatives want to cut programs like the NDP's pharmacare and dental care that will put more money in people's pockets. Why are the Liberals, like Conservatives, catering to the ultra-rich while working families in Canada are falling behind?
Good question.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I have tremendous respect for the member from Vancouver Kingsway, whom I have known for many years and with whom I have worked constructively for many years. I share his concern about income inequality. And that's why I know that he shares my happiness at the jobs numbers that we got this morning. The fact that we have 47,000 more jobs added to the Canadian economy in September, the fact that wages have outpaced inflation for 20 months in a row, and as an added bonus, rents have been going down in Vancouver.
Member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Parliament's budget watchdog has confirmed yet again that Canadians pay more in carbon tax than they get back in so-called rebates. In Ontario, for example, a family will pay $1,400 more than they get back. But they already knew that because everything costs more after 9 years of these NDP Liberals. Taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up for their economic vandalism that they're perpetrating on Canadians. So why won't this Prime Minister just put Canadians in the place where they need to be with a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, he didn't read the report. It's obvious, because on page 1 of the report, it says right here that Canadians will see a net gain, receiving more from the Canada carbon rebate than the total amount they pay in the federal fuel charge. Mr. Speaker, just flip to page 7. It's a bit long. I know the Member of Parliament might have a bit of a difficult time with a document like this, but the meaningless slogans don't matter. What does matter is that, broadly speaking, our updated estimates show larger net gains for average households right across income quintiles in backstop provinces compared to the previous distributional analysis. If he's going to quote the book, Mr. Speaker, he ought to read it. It's right here. I can bring it over if you'd like. Page 1.
Just going to ensure that we, of course, treat all members with the respect and dignity that all members deserve. The Honourable Member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Well, Speaker, not only did I read the report, I actually paid some attention when I dressed myself this morning, unlike that scene over there.
The Honourable Member knows that order. Honourable Member from Milton will take a seat. Colleagues, I've mentioned this before in question period that it's inappropriate to comment on the looks of any member, and so I do point that out. So I'll invite the Honourable Member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes to start his question again without the comments which the Speaker has risen to his feet for.
Speaker, not only did I read the report, I was able to make it past the first page, all the way to page 19 of the PBO's report that shows the true cost of the carbon tax for Ontario families, that it's going to be $1,400 more than they're getting back in their phony rebates. And Statistics Canada today revealed the full effect of the economic vandalism. All of these high taxes and economic wealth redistribution were supposed to make Canadians better off, they claimed, but instead we've seen the largest gap between the rich and poor that's ever existed in this country. It's time for a carbon tax election. Why won't they just give us one?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
You know, Mr. Speaker, I know that this is Friday, and I know that Conservatives just cannot resist every day seeking to plumb new depths of degraded nursery playground insults. But I have some advice for the member opposite. If he wants to insult a colleague for his appearance, never a good idea, maybe don't pick a gold medal winning Olympic athlete.
Order. Order. The Honourable Member from Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Well, Mr. Speaker, after 9 years, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time's up. This week, the Parliamentary Budget Officer once again reported that the carbon tax costs more per family than families get back in rebates. In Alberta, the carbon tax will cost nearly $2,000 by driving up the cost of gas, home heating and groceries, and nearly everything else. All 10 provinces don't like it, and Canadians don't like it. So when will the government call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know how you can tell that the Conservatives know they're losing the argument? Is when they result to useless, meaningless, ad hominem attacks on people's appearance. That is unnecessary, unparliamentary, and childish. It's childish just like their slogans, Mr. Speaker. They don't want to cheer on Canada's economy. They don't want to acknowledge that 47,000 jobs were added in September. They don't want to acknowledge that interest rates are down because inflation is down, and gas prices are down, and unemployment is down. And Mr. Speaker, the best part is our emissions are down too, because our plan is working. Canadians are working hard, and our economy is working for them.
The Honourable Member from Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, I asked him a polite question and he didn't answer it, so I'm not sure what that response was about. I'll ask again and point out, though, that the PBO report couldn't have been more clear. It's right there on page 19 and page 3. That's where the PBO says that Canadians pay more in the carbon tax and GST on the carbon tax than they get in rebates. The carbon tax drives up the cost of gas, heating, and groceries. It kills jobs. It suppresses wages by chasing investment out of Canada. But he doesn't have to agree with me, Mr. Speaker. His government can call a carbon tax election, and we'll see what Canadians have to say. When will they do it?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, the carbon price is this simple. It brings down pollution and it puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians. It is the single best mechanism known to the market to reduce carbon footprints. In fact, it was a Conservative invention, but their opposition to it is unsurprising. What is surprising is the complete flip-flop on this position that we've seen from the NDP. When you flip on your principles and abandon supporting carbon pricing, you breed voter cynicism and you send one message to progressive voters. That is that if you want somebody to defend climate action and support attacking pollution, your only option is the Liberal Party of Canada.
The Honourable Member from Yorkton Melville.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and this government's time is up. Once again, the Parliamentary Budget Officer has confirmed the carbon tax costs Canadians more than they get back. Saskatchewan families will pay more than $2,000 when this costly coalition quadruples the carbon tax. The Prime Minister knows Canadians have had enough of him, taxing them to death while robbing them blind. When will he call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The only place in the world where it seems like it's okay to never talk about climate change, commit to doing nothing about climate change, and commit to actually increasing our carbon emissions seems to be the Conservative campaign room. Because, Mr. Speaker, the world knows that climate change is real. We just had this horrific hurricane sweep across Florida, one of the most powerful ever. Wildfires are forcing Canadians out of their homes. And yes, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives want to say, how is the carbon price going to reduce hurricanes and forest fires? Mr. Speaker, it's science. They need to go back to literally grade 9 science. Greenhouse gases cause extreme weather.
The honourable member from Yorkton Melville.
Mr. Speaker, how terrible that member is willing to use a narrative that is false when it comes to Jasper, just to make his point that is not accurate. The PBO has confirmed again what Canadians from all 10 provinces know. The carbon tax continues to drive up the cost of gas, groceries, and heating, and that is only the thin edge of the wedge. Middle-class Canadians are losing ground. Those wishing to join the middle class have no confidence in this NDP Liberal costly coalition. The Prime Minister knows he's taxing Canadians to death and robbing them blind. When will he call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, the blatant climate denial from the other side is absurd and childish. Mr. Speaker, it's literally in grade 3 where kids learn about greenhouse gases. The more you put into the environment, the hotter our planet gets. The hotter our planet gets, the hotter the oceans become. And yeah, that causes more extreme weather. And it also dries out our forests, which makes our forests more susceptible and vulnerable to wildfires. Mr. Speaker, over 40% of the people around the world who were forced out of their homes because of wildfires last year were Canadian. We're a small country, 0.5% of the world's population. Climate change is real. When will these Conservatives get it?
Wake up!
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, Peter Beam and Peter Harder, 2 senators, want to overturn the House of Commons vote on C-282, which would protect the supply management system in trade talks. These 2 Liberal appointees are worried that it would take powers away from trade negotiators. That's actually the point. That's the point of the bill. It would prevent trade negotiators from selling off supply management like they did 3 times in a row. In talks with Europe, Asia, and the United States, we protect our farmers, they protect the right to throw them under the bus. Will the Liberals tell their buddies that they've got it all backwards? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's it. We've explained this over and over. We appoint senators who are independent. I'm sure that the Bloc understands the concept. We are calling on senators to act. We are telling them that the bill is supported by the overwhelming majority of parliamentarians. We call on them to act diligently and send the bill back to us as soon as possible. I hope I have been clear. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. The Peters were trade negotiators back in the past. I guess that's why, instead of protecting farmers, they're protecting trade negotiators. They privilege people like themselves at the expense of the common good, democracy, and our farmers. That's what the Senate is all about. It's an archaic monarchical institution. This is what happens when you give big salaries to people who are completely unaccountable. They start thinking they're more important than everyone else. Will their Liberals call on their majesties to come on down from on high and defend our farmers? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since 2015, we have appointed independent senators, but senators appointed before that by the Harper government are not independent. They go to caucus on Wednesday morning to get orders from the Conservative leaders. So I would ask Quebec's Conservatives a question. Are you putting pressure on your senators to ensure they will vote in favour of this bill? Order. The member for Ottawa South Orleans will come to order. We do not speak when we are not recognized by the chair.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time is up for this Liberal carbon tax grab. New data confirms that Alberta families will be worse off by nearly $2,000 after the carbon tax has quadrupled. That's money coming out of Alberta into government pockets to pay off the Liberal insiders. Will the Prime Minister apologize for the public smearing of the independent budget officer for telling the truth? And finally call the carbon tax election. Let's go.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, but it's just on page 1. The Conservatives clearly didn't get past the table of contents. It says clearly the PBO estimates that the average household in each backstop province will see a net gain, receiving more from the Canada Carbon Rebate than the total amount that they pay in the federal carbon charge. Mr. Speaker, October 15th is next week, and that's when Canadians will receive their next installment of the Canada Carbon Rebate, and that's good news because it's supporting their affordability. Mr. Speaker, interest rates are down, inflation is down, emissions are down. This plan is working. When will the Conservatives get it?
The Honourable Member from Regina, Wisconsin.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of these NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time is up, and the carbon tax is way up. Yesterday, the Parliamentary Budget Officer released an updated carbon tax report that shows that once the NDP Liberals quadruple the carbon tax, Saskatchewan families will be paying $2,000 per year. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election so Canadians can decide if they want to continue to pay his carbon tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And just a reminder to the constituents in my colleagues' riding in Saskatchewan, they'll be receiving $376 on October the 15th for a family of 4. And that's good news for affordability, Mr. Speaker, because 8 out of 10 families across Canada get more back for the Canada Carbon Rebate than they pay. But it seems like the Conservatives don't want to talk about the economy anymore. And it's probably because Canada's economy is doing really, really well. We added 47,000 jobs in September alone. Interest rates are down because inflation is down. Gas prices are down and emissions are down, Mr. Speaker. But the Conservatives don't want good news. They don't want to cheer for Canadians. They just want bad news stories.
The Honourable Member from Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years as Liberal NDP government, they are not worth the corporate crime and corruption. TD Bank has been ordered to pay over $3 billion. That's $3 billion by U.S. regulators because they've been found to be in conspiracy to violate the Banker Secrecy Act and commit money laundering for criminals who traffic in drugs that end up on our streets. Mr. Speaker, simple question for the government: when will they take money laundering seriously?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I do want to thank the member opposite for the serious and important question, and I want to wish him and his beautiful family a wonderful Thanksgiving. We do take money laundering very seriously. That is why we've acted to give the Superintendent of Financial Institutions more powers to oversee Canada's financial institutions, and I would urge all members interested in this important issue to look to the statement that he has made on this. We have also been investing in FinTrack and increasing its resources and authorities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is they're not taking it seriously. According to U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, he said of TD Bank, by making its services convenient for criminals, it became one. Why are the Americans having to catch chartered Canadian banks and charging them with money laundering linked to fentanyl, terrorism, and human trafficking? Could the minister stand up and tell us what charges, what sanctions the TD Bank will face in Canada?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it is entirely reasonable for Americans to police activity that happens in America. That's how sovereignty and jurisdiction works. It is also the case that in May, FinTrack levied a significant penalty against TD for non-compliance with money laundering measures. But I have a question for the member opposite. The Conservatives in this House voted against these measures to protect Canada's financial system.
Why is that?
Phil,
The Honourable Member from Nunavut.
Okaktiti Redfish Art Studio diverts youth out of the criminal justice system by teaching them skills. This government promised Redfish funding last April, but when the Prime Minister shuffled his cabinet, the new minister cancelled not only their funding, but the much-needed funding for Indigenous languages. Indigenous peoples deserve better than broken promises. Will the minister reverse his decision and fund both the Redfish Art Studio and the Indigenous Languages Program?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, Indigenous skills training is absolutely vital. It's absolutely critical. We have made record historic investments through the Indigenous Skills and Employment Training Program. We will continue to support young people, Indigenous people, and their education, their training, and their skills training. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Edmonton-Griesbach.
John Wells was known by his family and fellow Blood Tribe members as a cowboy, kind and respectful. But that didn't stop Calgary police from assaulting, tasing, pepper spraying, and sedating him while he was lying face down. He died before he ever made it to a hospital. Racism, colonialism, and systemic violence continues to murder Indigenous peoples today. When will the minister act to bring justice and accountability to policing that kills?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, the circumstances that my colleague from the NDP just described are deplorable and reprehensible. We all need to do better as a nation, including all law enforcement at every level in this country, in terms of addressing anti-Indigenous racism and addressing the harms that are caused between interactions between law enforcement and Indigenous people on this land. That is work that we are committed to doing in conjunction with that member and all members in this place that see a better vision for a future where reconciliation includes the fight against anti-Indigenous discrimination.
The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The United Nations, we heard the Minister of Foreign Affairs say that often the people who claim to speak for freedom are the same people who want the government to decide who people can love, who they are, or even what they can wear. We see it in our country, we see it around the world. In Afghanistan, we see it taken to its extreme as the Taliban continues to impose inhumane rules against women and girls. Today, on the International Day of the Girl, I asked the Minister of Foreign Affairs if she can reaffirm our government's commitment to girls.
Good question.
The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada is a country that values freedom from oppression, not freedom to oppress others. The rights of women and girls, including the right to choose, is put in danger by the far right, including some of the members of the Conservative opposition. A Liberal government will always support and protect women's rights and girls' rights, here at home and around the world. So along with Germany, Australia, and the Netherlands, we will hold the Taliban regime accountable for their violations of women and girls' rights in Afghanistan. We will always be there for women at home and around the world. Thank you.
The Honourable Member from Portage Lisker.
For 7 years, the Liberals knew Jasper was a tinderbox. Damning testimony has proved the Minister of Environment's negligence. He failed to do everything he could to protect homes, business, and this beloved national park. To stop a raging wildfire, you need two things: remove the heat and apply water. We know beyond a doubt that the minister did neither. A tiny fraction of the dead trees were removed, and shockingly, firefighters were even turned away. How much incompetence does it take to get fired from this Liberal cabinet?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his collaboration on the Environment Committee, where we have been hearing about the circumstances that led to the Jasper wildfire situation, Mr. Speaker. But however, I would like to point out that the over-politicization of this issue, the tabloidization of it, and what they're saying on social media has been absolutely unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. As a result of some of those tweets, there are public servants who receive death threats from people who are, enraged under these Conservatives and their attempts to politicize this issue. Mr. Speaker, a natural disaster is not a political issue, and our government has done everything that we could to prevent the wildfire.
The Honourable Member from Portage Lisker.
The only thing that Liberals are good at is trying to deflect and distract from their own failure. So let me tell you the facts, Mr. Speaker, about the Jasper fire investigation. They knew about the risk for 7 years and failed to do everything that they could to mitigate it. 20 fire trucks and 50 firefighters were turned away. Parks Canada bought hydrants that didn't even have the proper hookups. It is clear that this fire was a result of negligence or incompetence. So when will the Minister of Environment be shown the door so that other at-risk communities don't face the same fate as Jasper has?
Here, here. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, the Jasper wildfire was started by lightning, and the people that live in Jasper underwent an incredibly difficult summer. And to politicize this issue is unacceptable. Arctic Fire, the organization that my colleague mentioned, is a private for-profit company under direct contract with Alberta Wildfire. They had no direct relationship with Parks Canada, but they did supply Alberta Wildfire with 2 trucks for 4 days, not 20 trucks and not 50 wildfire fighters, as my colleague pointed out. Under advisement of the government of Alberta, they were released by Unified Command, not the federal government, Mr. Speaker.
Good job. The honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of National Defence and then Minister of Public Safety slow-walked the issuance of a CSIS warrant to investigate a former Ontario Liberal cabinet minister. The minister stalled the issuance of a warrant for 54 days, a warrant that national security officials say should have been issued within 4 to 10 days. So, what is the minister's explanation for this highly suspicious delay?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, for Canadians watching, what I will say to them quite clearly is that we take foreign interference extremely seriously on this side of the House. That is why we have a foreign interference inquiry unfolding before Canadians' eyes as we speak. That is why ministers have been attending and providing answers and clarity for Canadians. We will not take lessons from that side of the House about how to conquer and how to address foreign interference, because this is a priority for our government.
The honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, talk about a non-answer from the minister. 54 days of delay to issue a CSIS warrant to investigate a former Ontario Liberal cabinet minister. This at a time when the minister was issuing other warrants within a matter of days. Just a coincidence? Come on. So again, what is the explanation for this highly suspicious delay?
That's right. The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, we have the foreign interference inquiry unfolding. It is a commission that we established on this side of the House. We had the minister testify as to this very issue at the Foreign Interference Inquiry Commission, and he indicated that when he was presented with the warrant, he addressed it promptly.
4 days.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi, Bay James, Nunavik, EU. The clock is ticking. Liberals are running out of time before October 29th. They will have to stop avoiding the issue of increasing old age security for 65 to 74-year-olds. 79% of Canadians support pension increases. The House is calling for higher pensions. Seniors groups are calling for higher pensions. But each time the Liberals are asked about it, they hide behind partisan attacks. Will the Liberals increase old age security for 65 to 74-year-olds? Yes or no? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Bloc has had multiple occasions to support seniors. It's rather ironic to hear the colleague across the way talk this way, because she is supporting increases for those 65 and over, but they were against bringing the retirement age back down to 65. They voted against increasing the guaranteed income supplement. They voted against our dental care plan. We put forward measures to help seniors, and what does the Bloc do, Mr. Speaker? They vote them down. The Honourable Member for Abitibi, Nunavik, Bay James, EU. Once again, the Liberals are hiding behind partisan attacks. They think that seniors don't see through their strategy. Seniors can see that the Liberals are refusing to talk about the old age security pension. Let's remind the Liberals that on October 29th, they will no longer be able to hide. They will have to make a decision. Will they increase pensions, or will they explain in an election why they are depriving 1 million Quebecers of additional income? The Honourable Minister of Labour and Seniors. Mr. Speaker, this is not a partisan attack. I'd like to remind the Bloc Québécois that voting in this House is public. It's public knowledge what we vote on, whether we vote in favor or against. The Bloc Québécois voted against increasing the GIS. They voted against pharmacare, which is in effect as of today. They voted against care for diabetics in Quebec. And dental care, Mr. Speaker. Hundreds of thousands of Quebecers support our dental care plan, but the Bloc Québécois is against it. That's not a partisan attack, Mr. Speaker. These are just facts.
This NDP Liberal government, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time is up. Mr. Speaker, you ruled that the government violated a House order to turn over evidence about the latest $400 million Liberal scandal, effectively obstructing justice. We have heard new excuses for weeks about why your ruling should not be respected. What smoking gun is in those documents that the Liberals don't want Canadians to see? Is it malfeasance, complete incompetence, or obvious corruption?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Government in the House.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's really important to recognize literally thousands and thousands and thousands of pages have been provided on this issue. We need to appreciate that we have the RCMP, the Auditor General, we even have a former law clerk, all saying and expressing concerns in regards to this conservative political game where they are handing documents directly from here to the RCMP. I have a choice, or we have a choice. Do we listen to the political games of the Conservatives, or do we listen to the institutions like our RCMP and our Auditor General? I'm picking the RCMP.
The Honourable Member from Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, that's a load of stovetop stuffing. This is the latest in a series of scandals involving Liberal insiders riding the gravy train, mashing the truth, stuffing their pockets with taxpayer money, and treating Canadians like turkeys. Parliament has demanded these documents. You, Mr. Speaker, ordered that they be provided. This Liberal government believes that they are above the rules. Canadians are not gobbling up these excuses. When will they turn over the documents and let Parliament get back to work?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure you this government does not treat the matter as a joke as the Conservatives continue to play a political game at a great cost. We will continue to be focused on Canadians as they continue to be focused on the Conservatives. Listen to what the RCMP actually have to say, Mr. Speaker, and I quote directly. There is significant risk that the motion could be interpreted as a circumvention of normal investigative processes and I underline the word, charter protections. Why won't the Conservative Party listen to what the RCMP and others are saying?
The Honourable Member from Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. More proof the NDP Liberals are not worth the cost, crime, and corruption. The Auditor General found nearly $400 million tax dollars given to Liberal insiders through their Green Slush Fund. 186 conflicts of interest, 10 projects completely ineligible. Yet the Liberals refuse to hand over these documents to the police, effectively obstructing justice and choosing to grind Parliament to a halt. All at a time when Canadians can't afford to eat, heat, and house themselves. Will the NDP Liberals end the cover-up, give proof to the police so we can get accountability for corruption and Parliament can get working for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, Monday is Thanksgiving. You know what I give thanks for? I give thanks for living in a democracy where we draw a firm line between the police and politicians. That is a line that the Conservatives are asking us to cross. That is a line that the RCMP has flagged that is being crossed as we speak. To continue, they've said, quote, in a free and democratic society, this ensures that the government cannot direct or influence the actions of law enforcement. That's a direct quote from the Chief Commissioner of the RCMP, Mike Duhem. I never thought I'd have to say this in the House of Commons, but I wish for once the Conservatives would listen to the cops.
The Honourable Member for Pontiac. Mr. Speaker, for almost a year, Videotron employees in the Outaouais region were on lockout. The employees and their families have suffered as a result. They suffered a lot. But finally, this past Friday, the parties reached an agreement to end the lockout and the workers returned to work. Can the minister tell us how he contributed to resolving this dispute, and can the minister give us more information about this great news? The Honourable Minister of Labour and Seniors. Mr. Speaker, in the Outaouais region and throughout Quebec and Canada, we are thrilled by the resolution of this dispute, which lasted almost a year. Families and workers were affected. 210 families in my region were affected by this lockout. I would like to thank the Federal Mediation and Dispute Resolution Service for their incredible work. This has been a priority for me and my colleagues. Today, we are very relieved and happy to hear that this labor dispute has been solved. The Honourable Member for Montmagny, Lilley, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, what Canadians are calling for and what we are calling for is transparency and integrity. This Liberal government continues to hide behind excuses to obstruct justice. Canadians are having a hard time putting food on the table, and in Ottawa, $400 million went up in smoke in another Liberal corruption scandal. Mr. Speaker, can the Liberals put an end to their cover-up, turn over the evidence to the police, and allow Parliament to work for Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What is truly a scandal would be to give in to pressure from Conservative politicians to turn our country into a banana republic. They seem to want to get involved in the RCMP's work, but the RCMP is independent, and in fact, the RCMP even said to us in writing, don't interfere with our investigations because that can undermine them. But the Conservatives, they just want to turn Canada into a banana republic. The Honourable Member for Montmagny, Lilley, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, millions of Canadians have to choose between paying their rent or putting food on the table. Meanwhile, this Liberal government is using Canadians' money to help its friends get richer. We're all waiting for explanations about the misappropriation of $400 million of taxpayer money. As if Liberal corruption wasn't bad enough, they're adding insult to injury by refusing to produce the requested documents. Mr. Speaker, when will this Liberal government finally cooperate with the investigations and show a modicum of respect for the taxpayers who are demanding answers? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that the Conservatives don't ask a lot of questions about the economy. Why not? I think that the answer is very obvious. It's because we have good news about the economy. Today, we have a very good piece of news. In September, Canada added 47,000 good jobs to its economy. And for now 20 consecutive months, salaries have outpaced inflation. It's good news about the economy. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the House is still paralyzed due to another corruption scandal involving this Liberal government. The Green Fund has done nothing but create more bureaucracy and line the pockets of Liberal friends. $400 million. And 186 conflicts of interest at a time when over 2 million Canadians are going to food banks, which is unprecedented. Why doesn't the government give the police the documents that they need to recover the $400 million of taxpayer money? The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Mr. Speaker, we've already answered that question many times. There's one question that hasn't been answered yet, though. Why, in my colleague's riding, why doesn't he invite the leader of the Conservative Party to his riding to talk to the 10,500 residents of his riding who have benefited from the Canadian Dental Care Plan? They're all eligible. They've received an eligibility card. Many of them have already received dental care services. But the Conservative leader says that the dental care plan doesn't even exist. So when will the leader go to Beauce, to the members' riding, to tell them it doesn't exist?
Mr. Speaker, yesterday was a momentous day for Canadian healthcare. Bill C-64, the Pharmacare Act, received royal assent. This landmark legislation will establish a framework for national, publicly funded, single-payer, universal drug coverage and will ensure that Canadians across the country have access to the diabetes medications and contraception they need. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health share with this House what passing this landmark pharmacare legislation will mean for the health of Canadians.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Speaker. And yes, it was an exciting day. The Pharmacare is law now in Canada. That means that 3.5 million Canadians now will have access to diabetic medications. That means 9 million women can have access to contraceptives. Now, Speaker, we knew that the Conservatives are always against public healthcare systems, so they voted against this. But what's really disappointing is that NDP ripped the agreement, their own words, that actually delivering progress. They have chosen politics over progress. They're no different than the Conservatives. We will stand up for Canadians every single time.
The Honourable Member from Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, ever since Hello Ferries launched their high-speed service between Nanaimo and Vancouver, my constituent, Jamie Coleman, like other Canadians who use a wheelchair, is forced out of his chair and carried on board. This is disrespectful and embarrassing. Hello Ferries has a wheelchair Q-straint system installed, yet Transport Canada continues to delay regulatory approval. No one in a wheelchair should have to endure this just to take a ferry. When will the minister take action to ensure all Canadians can travel with dignity?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Citizen Services. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my colleague on behalf of persons living with disabilities in Canada. We have worked together on the first piece of Canadian legislation for an inclusive Canada, legislation for persons with disabilities. That's been a hallmark of our government's work. We have invested $6 billion. That's a historic investment, and this is just the start. There will be further steps. We will develop a plan to ensure that Canada is fully accessible for everyone.
Managed Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since 2016, the City of Burnaby has opposed the Trans Mountain Pipeline due to what it sees as an unacceptable risk of fire in populated areas from the expanded tank farm. Last week, the TMX Corporation bribed and gagged the City of Burnaby, paying them $21 million over 20 years, and to say, don't criticize us anymore. It's now a rule. You're not allowed to say anything about the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Did anyone on the Liberal front benches know about this? Did anyone on the government front bench approve spending taxpayers' dollars to bribe and gag the City of Burnaby?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the member opposite, or virtually opposite, for her hard work for many years fighting for Canadians and speaking up for climate action. And I want to go to the issue, I think, at the heart of her work, which is the need for strong climate action. I am really proud to be a member of a government that has made climate action a priority, the only major party which continues to advocate for a price on pollution, the most economically rational way to fight climate change.
Before we move on to points of order, I'd like to remind all members, I'd like to wish all members, rather, a happy week in their constituencies for those who are leaving right after question period. And I'd like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Leave this place for the weekend with your families.
On a point of order, the Honourable Member for Saint Jean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to quickly come back, if you don't mind, to the